And that's really where we end up handing people off to you guys as well, is like, we'll look at their books, we'll look at their financials, we're like, you guys need to get some insight on this. You need somebody to clean this up. We're not going to move forward until this happens, because you have no idea what's going on. And you can choose to walk away from any lending offer that's out there confident in knowing that you didn't necessarily need it, right? So that's a tough, that's like trying to steer the Titanic with a scoop.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Real CFO Project. I am with Paul Childers with Blue Sky Biz Solutions today. Paul focuses on blue collar businesses for the most part and making sure that they're financially viable to lenders through improving and working with their business credit. You know, here at Real CFO Project, our goal is to bring people that are knowledgeable about topics that help us as small business owners, not just financially, but you know, the journey, right? The faith, the family, the fitness, everything that's rolled up into being an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to have Paul today. We've done some deals together. He does great work. So Paul, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Chad. Appreciate you having me on. I've got a cold, so if I sound nasally, that's why.
Oh, you're good, man. Hey, just kind of give everybody a 30,000 foot view of what you do, who you are, how you got there.
Yeah. So, Blue Sky, as it sits now, is going to actually, we're going through a rebrand because of some, you talk about views, right? You talk about core, your mission statement, your core competencies and things you're good at. And at the end of the day, like, Blue Sky Biz Solutions served its purpose to help people bring them into a blue sky area, right? But, at the end of the day, when you go to try to like trademark something, and then you find out that there's a fairly large lender group out there that already has trademarked Blue Sky, we have to pivot. So,
oh, wow.
So kind of as I go into like the 30,000 foot view, this all kind of plays into this as my background is I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. My dad was an engineer for 3M. My mom was a school teacher. I married into a farm family, the eldest of the farmer's daughter, if you will. We live in a really small town, and our community is all about helping each other do better. If something happens to a family, you jump in and you serve them. If your family's going through an illness or a time of suffering, people jump in and help you. And so that installment of like community and serving one another has always been kind of a big part of who I am individually, to a point where it kind of bleeds over into like our business stuff and what we do. And it's really just trying to give as much information, knowledge, education, and equip owners with the ability to kind of differentiate what's good, what's bad, where should I go, how should I go and do this, and doing it without all the strings attached, right? Some of that's giving it away for free, some of that's whatever. My 10 years in automotive, allowed me to kind of have some decent knowledge on how to set businesses up for EIN only financing. And I've just kind of extrapolated that out as I've gotten into more of the lending space. I was a broker for a while, realized like what happens in the brokering world, how easy it is for a broker to tell you that they're going to do the best for you. And then on the back end, they're marking your loan up on a slider to, 10 to 14 points. And it just, I didn't mesh with that well, because I went against everything that I was ever taught. Right. So Blue Sky came about to help owners just know what's happening in the lending space. And as we were doing this, what we realized is, and where the new brand is coming as I kind of pull this stuff together, is that owners don't understand how much control they're leaving on the table because all of their stuff is so fragmented, right? And you see this with their financials, you see this with their books. It's all over the place. They could have personal stuff involved. They might have multiple companies that are all, collateralized against each other, commingling. Well, that's just their financials. Their sales processes could be scattered. Maybe their CRM and their operating systems are different. Maybe their data and everything's different. So like they have this fragmented issue. And so our whole goal with this company is to help pull that all together and give them clarity on like, what is it that you actually have? And then how do you use this as a tool to gain leverage in the lending and credit world? And so from a 30,000 foot view, that's really what we're doing, is just through education, data, information, giving control back to the owners so that they can lend with a position of power and leverage.
Yeah. So ultimately, when you're working with folks, I mean, how do they get introduced to you? Is it when they're kind of like us, where they're kind of the oh shit moment where, hey, I need credit, I need to get my taxes done, or I got this notice from the IRS, so they have some sort of pain, right? So they're reacting. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say probably 40 to 50% of them probably is that's the case, right? They got pulled out a loan that they knew they shouldn't have pulled out, or maybe didn't know what it was actually going to do, and started to feel the pain of the loan and the terms, and were like, oh crap, we need to get out of this. Maybe it's they waited till last minute to go and try to get an approval for a vehicle or a piece of equipment or whatever, and have been getting denied. It could be that their credit card limits are super low and they can't get them extended. There's all these little things that, we're taught on the consumer credit side that you can go and apply for something and you're probably going to get an approval, right? I mean, that's intrinsically how we think of banking as on the consumer side of things, of like, well, I'm just going to go to the dealership and get a loan. I'm going to go to the bank and get a loan.
Right.
Businesses, we don't get them into a pain point until usually they get denied, or they start thinking about what they need to get an approval for and realize that they probably don't have enough credit history or whatever to go get that kind of approval. So yeah, it's usually in a squeeze or a pain point that they always come to us.
Okay. Yeah, I had a call recently. Since you were going to be on today, I was going to run this by you, but it sounds like you work with more businesses more holistically, right? It's not like, let's go get this credit and that's the goal, right? Mm-hmm. Just get credit or get financing. That's the goal. That was the brokerage thing. That was your job there. Now You're saying you're asking the questions, right? So I had a gentleman message me and say, hey, I've got this new business. We're going after bigger contracts. I've got this factoring deal. Here's the percentages and everything. And I said, why are you considering factoring? So, well, I need to, front load some of the jobs, so I need to get receivable. I said, do you have receivable problems? I mean, is your AR turnover too short? Yeah, it's probably 45 to 60 days. Okay, that's reasonable in some areas. Can you ACH clients? Can you set them up on a monthly ACH so you're getting paid? The whole laundry list of questions, ifs, ands, or buts, playing that devil's advocate. And then he's kind of like, I don't know, maybe. Is that something that you try to work with businesses to say, hey, you might not need lending as much. We have a runway. Your systems could be dialed in a little bit more, so your AR turnover is a lot quicker.
Yep.
Right. And now you've got that cash flow that you need to seed that next job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's always, let's cure the symptom and not just slap a Band-Aid on the scratch or the wound or whatever. Right. It's okay. I look at lending in a lot of cases in the broker space as they're so fast to just slap money on somebody, when really the issues underneath it are, okay, cool, we just gave them money, but their churn and burn rate on client acquisition is super high, and that money's not going to do them any good because their sales cycle is so long and their retention cycle sucks, right? Or they have a problem with collections, or things are sitting on their salesperson's desk and not getting pushed over to accounting to get billed fast enough, and it's extending the pain that much further. That's stuff that a loan isn't going to help you bridge, right? I mean, a loan's just going to add extra pressure on top of that, especially some of these loans that these guys are taking out, these owners are taking out. So we always look at, like, what other options exist? Is this one the best option for you? And then we're not lawyers or anything like that, but on a surface level, like, let's just review the contract and see if there's anything in the contract and the wording that really jumps out to us of like, oh, wow, like, if this was my business, I don't know that I would sign up to be able to have somebody do that to me, right? And this is all stuff that we see owners don't do a lot of, because oftentimes they just think they need money and they get excited that somebody gave them a contract, and so they sign the dotted line, not really realizing all the repercussions and implications of that contract. So it is a backpedal, reset. Let's look at the whole thing. And that's really where we end up handing people off to you guys as well, is like, we'll look at their books, we'll look at their financials. We're like, you guys need to get some insight on this. You need somebody to clean this up. We're not going to move forward until this happens, because you have no idea what's going on in your company.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a situation where it's like, man, just these simple fixes, like any new contracts, you have an ACH, monthly ACH. Maybe you give them a 1% discount. That's cheaper than the fee you're paying to the factoring company, right? If you sign up ACH, you get a 2% discount, right? Or if you sign up for weekly billing, on these big commercial jobs, maybe you give them a 2-3% discount, something like that. Just thinking outside the box of,
Nope,
hello,
so
where are we at? Hold on a second.
I can hear you.
Apparently, I need to move my mouse periodically. I don't know. We'll cut that out.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, that was strange. But yeah, just thinking outside the box and asking questions, question everything. Is like, how can I? It's not like, hey, okay, I can't do this because of X. Like, how can I do this in lieu of X,
Right.
right? And make some adjustments and changes. I'm not saying that you don't need financing, you don't need factoring. It is in place for a reason, right? People need it. People have made millions by leveraging it. However, it's in many, many small businesses, especially startups, that is not a first step.
No.
Right. And
Right.
so just having those conversations. So that's what I love about you is like you bring people in, we have conversations. We were just recently on a call with 6 folks, right? 2 business owners and 4 advisors. And just in that 30-40 minute call, tremendous value came in. A lot of time was saved. A lot of resources were saved, and a pinpoint direction for them to focus on was identified. And that's the power of having advisors, asking questions, and doing things. So uh,
100%.
I love the way you operate because you're always cueing me in on conversations that, maybe I don't necessarily need to be on, but at least I'm understanding
Yep.
what the conversation is and we can come up with a better solution. No, that's awesome. When did you start, man?
March of 2023. So
Okay.
we're into official year 3, going into year 4. So that's officially when we open the doors. The current version of how we operate our company has been around since November of 24 was when I tore down the brokering part of this and went, how do we position ourselves as an unbiased, almost a fiduciary role for clients where we come beside them and we help them through the process versus the transactional chase and, the hunt and eat what you kill mentality of the broker space. So, really wanted to position ourselves as something very different out there in the lending space. And I didn't believe and still don't believe that you can do that when you are getting the bulk of your income paid from lending commissions.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. Very fair. I know I've seen a lot of those deals come through where people were just brokered to death, right? And it's just rolling that MCA that to the next, to the next, to the next. And I've had, clients that were referred to me to try to work through out of that cycle in the past. And it's just like, man, it's almost abusive to a
Yep.
certain extent. Now, I'm not going to badmouth a broker for getting somebody an MCA. Again, people have made millions leveraging other people's money. It's the plan behind it, right? It's not the Band-Aid as you referred to earlier. It's the plan. Okay, this is a moment in time. We're going to leverage this to do this, but we need to do this in 3 months, right?
Yep.
And if we don't, that plan's not going to work. So there's no plan B,
Yep.
right? So I'm sure you see it every day too.
Yeah, I don't have anything against brokers for the most part, right? I mean, there are definitely brokers that I definitely have issues with, and I'm vocal about those brokers. But we're just doing our jobs, and a lot of times you get people that come to you and they tell you what they need, and they're very good at telling you what they need, and they can articulate it, and then all of a sudden you put them in the loan, and like 6 months later they're like, I shouldn't have done this, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, like why didn't we address that before? Well, that's just the way business owners work too, right? Like, so shifting mentality, shifting the way they think about things, that's a tough thing to do, right? Because everything we're taught is just go get a loan when you need it, not how do you prep and prepare yourself to have control over the lending process so that it's done when you need it, how you need it, on your terms, and you can choose to walk away from any lending offer that's out there confidently knowing that you didn't necessarily need it, right? So that's like trying to steer the Titanic with a spoon, right? That mentality away. So
No, it is, but being prepared and ready for financing and saying no is a lot better than the other way around. And I used to, honestly, I had a bad flavor in my mouth on brokers just because I thought it was, banks are doing this. Why do I need somebody else to go between me and the bank? Well, a couple of reasons. One, I'm in finance, CPA, and I know numbers. It's easy for me to pull that data together and give to a bank lender. That's not always the case on when people are talking to a broker. The broker's not the numbers guy saying you need, or the owner's not the numbers guy. The broker kind of knows what you need and can help guide you there.
Yeah.
There's value in it, but more importantly, and I see you talk about it quite often, is not every lender's the same. You might have a U.S. bank over here that likes to live in this kind of niche, this industry, or this asset class, whatever it is. And this lender over here is a little more aggressive in this industry.
Mhm.
And something that turns the screen green on this side might not turn the screen green on this side.
Yep.
It might be a roadblock. So talking to the right people is critical as well, right?
Super important. And, again, I not a fault, I don't think, of the broker space, but I think it is kind of just a default of the broker space is, they're going to give you guidance and advice based off of most of the time what benefits them, right? I mean, that's how they're incentivized. And early on in my selling career, I had a mentor that told me, he goes, when you start to think of things in terms of what is incentivizing that person across the table from you, you start to gain control over conversations because now you're identifying the black swan in the entire conversation, which means you have the total control over the conversation because now you know what motivates them, right? Brokers are motivated by getting people into loans that are going to pay them out, right? Why do brokers not usually send people to go finance through John Deere Financial or Ford or GM? Well, a lot of times you can't because there isn't a real financial transaction that takes place there when you get somebody set up with a line of credit at Ford or GM or Ally, right? So you can't really charge people a success fee on that stuff, and you're sure as heck not going to get charged a commission back from the lender themselves. So why would I spend time educating people to go there when I can just go put them into my fleet financing deal where I do get paid out 3 to 4 to 8 points on the back, right? Whereas for us, I'm sitting here going like, man, you guys are leaving a lot of money on the table because you can get some pretty good incentive rates on dealer financing through manufacturers. We've been seeing a ton of 0% interest rates on equipment. Yes, is the interest and the equipment a little more expensive without the cash breaks? Sure. But when you actually do the math on 0% over 60 months versus getting 10,000 off the price, almost always 0% over 60 months wins, right? So it's just giving people the options and going, this is what's actually out here. Here's how you can qualify for this stuff. And now let's go make sure that it makes sense for you to take it or not. And if it doesn't, we'll go a different route. So we don't leave any rock unturned when we work with people and owners because we want to make sure we're finding the best fit for them. And that's really our motive.
Oh, that's awesome. Transition a little bit. You mentioned to me one time that, I'm all about building and growing and scaling and saving, but not at the detriment of doing stuff with my family, the time, the memories, the stuff.
Yeah.
How have you leveraged business ownership with family life from, maybe the first year getting started, like, hey, I'm done with my W-2, I'm jumping into this versus now, right?
First and foremost, I'm really blessed that I have a spouse that trusts me when I say I'm going to do something, that she's confident enough that I'm going to figure it out. Because I remember I had mutually parted ways with the previous company, and I told her, I said, I don't think I'm going to go back to work for anybody. I think I'm going to open up my own company. She just kind of stopped and looked at me, and she was just like, okay. I'm like, what? Like, you're like, what? Turns out she didn't really know what to say to me at that point in time, so I don't know that she actually trusted me.
You're like, I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. I need to
Like,
give
that
me
was
something,
crazy.
right?
But the first years of business is brutal, and I don't care who you are, you're going to sacrifice things that you didn't think you were ever going to have to sacrifice in order to get stuff up off the ground. And I saw a post today that said, they were convinced that to get a business off the ground, you have to spend more than just 9 to 5 doing it. I agree with that. I was pretty conscientious of when I was growing the business that like I wanted to build this business around my family and not my family around the business. And so I tried to be very mindful of cutoff times. But at the end of the day, when you're in growth mode and you're just trying to get as much exposure as you can, I was on my phone probably way more than I needed to be at night, closing deals, commenting on posts, building my brand, getting in front of as many people as I could, giving as much away for free as I could, right? And so that first probably 18 months of business growth was I took a lot away from the family. Our standard of living never really dipped too much. And I did that intentionally, but like there wasn't a whole lot of extra money for Christmas. There wasn't birthdays. There wasn't a lot of money for vacations, all that kind of stuff. Fast forward to now, right? And I've got a team, I've got employees. There's my kids in the background there. I've got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. I've built this up to a point that we're to a spot where if we want to go on a vacation, we can pack up and go on a vacation if we want. I could leave my office early if I need to. I have non-negotiables. I will not go to an event. I will not go do anything out of town if there's a kids event that's going on that day or that weekend. I won't miss that stuff because that's stuff that you don't get back. And so I gave up a lot of time early on in my kid's life when I worked in automotive and I worked in retail. Nights, weekends, long days, right? And so when I started the business, my goal was to not take away any more time from them because I lost a lot of time when they were little.
Yeah, no, you're doing it the right way, man. I started back in 2007 and I kind of did the reverse. I kind of put business and everything in front. Fast forward to, I don't know, 2014, 15, 16, that kind of had compounded and it was just a tug of war. It was me and the business and everything else, right? I'd still attend to their events and go to everything, but there was no real commitment. And I'm not saying that I didn't pay any attention to my family, but it wasn't part of the thought process necessarily. It was like build, do. And I wasn't near as successful as I could have been if everybody was all inclusive, right? So I think I saw that post you're saying the 9 to 5 ensures growth and success, or you can't have growth and success without working a 9 to 5. And that is true, right? You have to be flexible, adaptable, adjustable to everything. But I think once you pour into your business and you get it rolling, the mindset's a big thing, right? You have to have the mindset early on to see those things. And most business owners or small people that get into business don't think about that, right? So I guarantee if you say, hey, I know there's going to be sacrifices with this, but I'm going to prioritize time with my family and I'm going to build this business in such a way that it allows me to work the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 12 here and there and everywhere so I can pour into my family and spend time in that bucket. And for so long I didn't. It was all business. And then that was kind of the afterthought. Now it's kind of like, okay, they understand and know that I'm busy quite often, and different seasons of life call for different commitments and sacrifices. It's tax season, right? This is it's a different season, but they understand that, they know that, but I'm intentionally building the team behind me. It only took me 15 years to get there, man. So I commend you for
Overnight.
doing it in your 19th month, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm a hard worker in general. So I learned a lot of lessons early on in the amount of time and effort that I gave to companies that never were going to give that, effort and thought back, right? Like as a W-2 employee, I treated those companies like my own company. So when I say that, like, I gave up time, like, my wife was essentially a single parent for most of our children's upbringing because I was never home because I was so dedicated to selling cars to whatever. So I learned from that. And so when I started my business, I didn't want to do the business like how I did my jobs. And so there were some lessons that were learned over the 17 years that I was a W-2 employee that I didn't want to bring into owning a company. And, if I would have started my business 10, 15 years earlier, I probably would have been the same way where it would have been all business. Right. So
no, that's true. That's true. So you were kind of in the same boat as me. I would tell anybody listening and small business owners is you don't know what you don't know. And that's where there's power. There's power in community and mentors and being around people who have done it, because it's a very simple question. It's like, as I'm building this, how can I include my family and not fall into that trap versus just going full bore over here? You might work the same, you might do the same amount of hours, but you're also, when you're down, you're committed to that family. There's several ways to do it, but asking yourself that question, being intentional and making that part, your family, your faith, everything, part of that commitment, right? So you're not sacrificing. So it might be, hey, the kids are going to come to work with me on Saturday morning. They're going to clean the office. I'm going to give them $20 each. Then we're going to stop by, the little toy shop on the way home, let them buy a toy and then go have some ice cream.
For sure.
Right. I mean, that's part of including the minute. No, that's great. What's next for you, man?
Oh, what's next? Well, we got a rebrand rolling out, so that's interesting. I'm not quite having fallen on a name yet. I've got a couple ideas and thoughts on where we're going to go with that. So I'm excited about that because I think it's going to encapsulate our purpose and our focus a little bit more. Man, I don't know. My daughter's wrapping up her volleyball season, so we've got her last 2 tournaments coming up, and my little boy just made traveling baseball this year for the 8U team. So we're going to be traveling around to tournaments on weekends for that.
Good for you.
And I've got another surprise vacation coming up for my wife and I, just her and I. We took our first couples only vacation just a couple weeks ago to San Diego when I was at an event. First time in our almost 17 years of marriage since our honeymoon that we had gotten away, just her and I. So that was nice. So right now it's just, enjoying where I'm at, being comfortable with where we're at, being okay with our growth, getting the foundations and the clarity that I need for the next level, which is hiring key employees to begin to make myself useless in the company. That's ultimately my goal. I tell my wife and I tell my friends all the time, I'm like, I want to show up to a team meeting like 10 years down the road, and the team is like, why is there a homeless guy here? Like, that's my ultimate goal. Like, they have no idea like who I am, why I'm there, right? But because I've made myself so useless by building a super efficient team.
Yeah, I'm a little ahead of you in that thought process. Mine's starting now. Is how do I become useless? Got a great solid team, great core, and we're going to amplify that transition. Not that I'm walking away, not that I'll give total control, but my team's making hiring decisions. I'm looking at the number. Yes, we need this. What pieces do you need? And they're making those decisions. They're talking to the recruiters, they're interviewing the candidates, they're saying, hey, we need to hire them. And it's an awesome feeling with that same goal in mind, is like, how do I become irrelevant?
Well, now let me ask you this though, too, because you're there, right? Like, how many years did it take you to get to a point where you were able to start doing that and doing it with confidence?
It took a long time because I thought I had to control everything. And I made one key hire. And I trust her immensely. And that has and then when I trusted her immensely, I go make a mistake and hire somebody, and it backfires. And then you say, you know what? You hire the next, you do everything. I'll just, show up, say hi, ask them about their kids, their family. Do they align culturally? But you and she made the next hire and the next hire and the next hire, and they're rock solid. They fit. And, as an owner, as somebody that's kind of controlling, it took me a long time. I started in 2007. That was 2023.
Yeah.
I mean, so 15 years of trying to have to be the boss and make all the decisions to, now there's some of it loosened up before that, but just in terms of team and growing and scaling what we're doing with Kinsler Brown and accounting, tax planning and CFO type work, really just started. It was a startup in 2022.
Okay.
And she was the first employee. And I said, here. And she started doing work. I'm like, okay, we need to fix it. We need to fix it. And then she kind of took it by the reins. And now I'm in my comfort spot for the most part, having conversations, building relationships, coaching clients, working with them. Other folks are kind of doing the work and the stuff behind the scenes. So it takes a while, but I was not intentional when I started. And that's why it started being in Apex and Arate and meeting folks like you and different guys that are in business and listening to people that know what they're doing, have been in it.
Mm-hmm.
To say, hey, you need to do this. And if I would have known that at 30, it would be a game changer. I would probably be transitioned out by now and living at the lake.
Sure. Now,
to be honest with you.
And I think there's something to be said about that, that comment. I've had this comment with a couple of guys, of like, if we were told this earlier, would we have listened? Right. Because I think there's factors in that. Because I know when I started my company, I was told by many people, like, you need to learn these things. You can't skip the line. There's no shortcut. You're going to have to figure this stuff out. You just have to do it on your own. And me being the smart ass that I am, I'm like, we can work our way around this. And lo and behold, guess what? I still had to do it the long way. I still had to figure it out. And so I think sometimes it's always like, man, if I would have heard that earlier, and then I actually think about who I was when I was younger, I was like, I wouldn't have listened to that anyway, because I would have been too stubborn to hear it, So.
Yeah. Well, and that to a certain extent, you're spot on. And especially, like, I came from a background. My dad worked in corporate America. He was a hard worker. He was up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, at the office by 6, came home at 5:30. Like, every day, except Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes he'd get up at 4, go in from 4 to 8 on Saturday morning just to get some stuff done, and then he'd be home. But that was I thought that was success, right? Mm-hmm. And he was very successful, don't get me wrong. But I thought that was what I had to do in the business. I had to just go show up earlier than everybody else. I had to do more work than everybody else. I had to produce. And in doing that, I didn't bring people along. So that was my guiding light of life that I saw. And if I had been told, you need to do this, you need to do this, I probably would have said no. I'll just grind it. But I would have recognized where I was falling short a hell of a lot sooner.
Sure.
Right. Sure. And that's why I say is connection, community, about people who have done it, people around at your level and people below you. It takes all, right? So
100%.
No, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Where can people find you?
So we've got our website, obviously still blueskybusinesssolutions.com. Honestly, the easiest way to find me is if you got Facebook, social media. I'm on Facebook, just my regular page, Paul Childers. Instagram is PA Childers. LinkedIn's Paul Childers as well. Other than that, you can fill out a form or request on our website. You can check out kind of what we do and how we do things. But that's the easiest way to get hold of me is just find me on my Facebook page. If you have it, shoot me a DM.
No, that's good. Guys, I'd recommend, you get a hold of Paul, check him out on social, follow him at least, because he shares good stuff every day, whether it be business related, credit related, life related, some of these lessons that we talked about today. So definitely check him out on the socials. out there, Paul Childers. Appreciate it, Paul.
Thanks, Chad.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.